As far as video game soundtracks go that use music from artists other than the in-house composer, it doesn't get much better than the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater soundtracks. Now, sure, this could be nostalgia talking, but given the many various articles written about the virtues of the soundtrack to this game, makes me think that I'm right on this one. Now, it's this game and games like Guitar Hero that came out a few years later that really expanded kids' minds as to what was out there musically. Stick around as we dive into not only the origin, but the importance of the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater soundtrack. This is Dancing with Ghosts. Before I get started, I'm only going to be focusing on Tony Hawk 1 and 2 because to me, these games epitomize the beauty of those early soundtracks. Tony Hawk 3 definitely had some good songs on its soundtrack for sure, but it also started to feel more commercially focused at that point, though it's still a lesser classic in its own right. Neversoft, the developer of the Tony Hawk series, started out as a small, ultra-talented group of eclectic personalities. Many of them were into skate culture, which was fairly still underground at the time. This small but passionate team wanted to make a video game about skateboarding that felt super authentic. And at the time, your options for skateboarding games were pretty limited and pretty bad. So yeah, I would say that Tony Hawk was, in fact, the most authentic skateboarding game for that period. Although I do kind of find it funny that your character can literally stay crouched the entire time without having to push off to get more speed. And you can take these sick falls off of second-story ledges and just slam onto the ground and just get up like everything's fine. Or you would catch this like insane air off of a half pipe that you would never get in person. But hey, it makes game more fun, you know? Suspend reality. The guys on the development team who were the most involved in skate culture were the ones chosen to help select the songs that would end up on the soundtrack. Lists would be compiled and CDs would be sent to Activision to see if the rights could be secured. Now I imagine, given how the music industry works, some of these songs, like Suicide Machine's New Girls, probably went for dirt cheap, seeing as this band was and still pretty much is relatively unknown outside of this video game. But then you take a song like Guerrilla Radio by Rage Against the Machine, and I'm sure that cost Activision a pretty penny. Just an interesting thought. Former Neversoft development director Scott Pease stated, quote, "The soundtrack was definitely a team effort. Being a small, unknown game with a limited budget, we reached for some classic tracks that had never been in a video game before." This was a unique advantage that the team had, since most of the bands on the roster had yet to be discovered by the mainstream. In Tony Hawk 1, for instance, sure, you had bands like Primus, the Dead Kennedys, and the Vandals, all which had large cult followings, but then there were obscure bands like the Ernies, Speed Dealer, and Goldfinger. The same phenomenon happened in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, with bands essentially getting their hit single from a video game. Many of these bands have since been interviewed and have given the Tony Hawk series high praise for shining a spotlight onto their band. This was really the first game of its kind to have that much of an impact on an artist's career. Dude, I even went out and bought Goldfinger's second album, Hang-Ups, just because I liked the song Superman so much. And I was used to hearing the butchered, overly compressed Nintendo 64 version of the song, so that's really saying something. But we will get to that part later. Tony Hawk and some of the other pro skaters that were featured in the game also had a hand in choosing some of the songs. For instance, if it was an old punk rock song, that was probably the work of Tony Hawk. When Tony Hawk 1 and 2 Remastered was released in 2020, former Tony Hawk producer Scott Pease was asked why these soundtracks have gone on to garner such a beloved reputation in the world of video game soundtracks. His response hits the nail on the head. Quote, "It came down to not picking tracks based on market research or what was, quote, hot. They were legit skate tracks, hand-selected and, in some cases, just old enough to be new to younger fans of the game. We also put a premium on variety so that in a long play session, the soundtrack wouldn't drone on. Each run would surprise you." And if you've played any of these games as much as I have, that is so very true. There is no way in hell I would have discovered a lot of this music if it weren't for this game. I mean, how would I have? Hardly any of these bands were getting any radio play, and you never saw them on MTV. I mean, back when MTV was even a thing that did play music videos. It seems like the philosophy of taking a chance and doing something different is a lesson that is constantly lost on the music industry who always hedges their bets with the status quo, which is why you hear such crappy music on the radio. So now I want to shift my focus towards something that really annoys me, and that would be the Nintendo 64. For any of you who have watched my channel for any period of time, you know that I tend to hate the Nintendo 64. But when Tony Hawk first came out, that's the system that I had to play it on, and boy did it have its share of problems in the music department. Since games on the Nintendo 64 were cartridge-based, that meant that there wasn't nearly enough memory on the circuit board to house the fully uncompressed versions of the songs. So what we got was this. The audio quality of an average MP3 file is about 128 kilobytes per second. The Nintendo 64 versions of these songs come in at about 64 kilobytes per second. So literally, the songs featured on the PlayStation version of the game sounded twice as good as the Nintendo 64 version. Some songs, like the Dead Kennedys' Police Truck, had the vocals completely removed, most likely due to the controversial nature of the lyrics. The song then just became a poorly sliced together instrumental loop. If you were a PlayStation 1 owner, however, you got to hear the full glory of every song. And I do mean every song, because the Nintendo 64 version of Tony Hawk left out two entire songs from the soundtrack. The Vandals' Eurobarge and Evinrude's Vilified were completely absent from the N64 version. They probably left these songs off due to the space restrictions, but the Vandals' song Eurobarge says the A word. And even the dreaded F word. So I'm sure that didn't help its case. So now I'd like to just do a little brief breakdown of all the tracks on the first two Tony Hawk soundtracks and just give like my brief impression of it. I liked most of the tracks on these albums, and I'm not going to give you the whole biography on the band or anything, but we're just going to run through these real quick. So according to the soundtrack here, the first track is Police Truck by Dead Kennedys, and that is the classic song that opens up Tony Hawk. It's a great song that has a nice like surf rock vibe to it. It's kind of, to me, it's really the heart and soul of the first Tony Hawk game. Next is track 2, Evinrude Vilified. This is not a track, as I said before, that I had on my Nintendo 64 version of the game. So I really didn't get to hear this song very much growing up. But it's got a nice, like, alternative, almost new metal groove to it that I think is pretty cool, except for kind of the middle of the song. He kind of loses me, like, I can take it like any other man, or whatever that's about. And then, of course, we have the seminal breakout hit from Tony Hawk, the first album, which is Goldfinger's Superman, super upbeat ska track. Like I said, I bought the album based off of liking this one song so much. Up next, we have Jerry Was a Race Car Driver by Primus. I already liked Primus at this point, so this was kind of like, cool, a Primus song. But it was really when I listened to Pork Soda that I was like, I am in love with Primus. So that was, it was still cool to hear them on this game, though. Up next, we got Speed Dealer, Screamer. Oh yeah, this is like a old school, like hardcore song. This is one of the ones I didn't really care so much for. This is one that my friends probably would have liked a lot, but I've never really been into that super hardcore kind of punk sound. I need a little bit more order in my music, I guess you could say. So now we have Suicidal Tendencies, Psychovision. I wonder if Robert Trujillo was playing bass in the band at this point. Anyway, I mean, this is just like a classic song from the game. I mean, you can almost literally picture yourself like skating through like the factory or whatever while hearing this song playing in the background. Next, we have Suicide Machine's New Girl. So again, you can't help but to think about Tony Hawk whenever you hear this song. It's got definitely a ska vibe to it, but then it's also got this very screamy chorus, which appeals to the ska kids and it appeals to the male heads. It's so inextricably tied to Tony Hawk that I can't like listen to it in any other context, if that makes sense. The Ernie's Here and Now, this is probably one of my favorite like breakout songs from this album. Like, this had a killer guitar riff. It just, the whole song hits so hard. If you ever have a chance to just listen to this song on Spotify, it's a banger, dude. I play it at my gigs to this day. I do really like this song a lot. We have the Vandals' Euro Barge. This is one of the songs I said was left off, but because I went back on the Dreamcast and bought Tony Hawk, I was able to hear this song, and I was like, what the hell? Where's this song been at on the Nintendo 64 version? My favorite line is, I am the ambassador of Kick Your Asseter. That was pretty good. And then we have Unsane Committed. I want to say this is another song that they might have left the vocals in because they were heavily distorted and you couldn't really hear what the guy was saying. But I feel like this is a song that for the Nintendo 64 version, they just did the audio. So that's the first album. Let's go into the second album here, or Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, which I feel like has a much stronger soundtrack than the first one, but is the first one's no slouch either. We have You by Bad Religion. There's a place where everyone can be happy. It's a fucking great song. Up next we have, getting a phone call here. Evil Eye by Fu Manchu. I always thought this was like a wacky, like, kind of, it's almost got like a heavy 60s like rock vibe, like I don't know what to compare it to. Probably using the wrong descriptors here, but I liked that song a lot. I love May 16th by Lagwagon. I thought the vocals were really emotive and just kind of the fast tempo kind of, but minor sounding, very sad sounding song. Dude, Blood Brothers by Papa Roach. This song was a banger. This is such an underrated Papa Roach song. Like, way less cringier than their other stuff. I actually covered this in one of my cover bands. I will always stand up for this song. Great song. So now we start seeing in the Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 soundtrack more hip-hop songs. Well, but more. There was 0 on the first one. So there's definitely hip-hop songs on here. Now this is combining like a ska type hip hop kind of beat or whatever. In general, I never really cared for the hip hop songs that were on the on here, just because I did like this song, Subculture Styles Beyond. But yeah, they were so underground, and rap's already not my favorite genre in the world, so such an underground rap song I'm not gonna be as likely to like as much. So we have another rap song, Out With the Old by Alley Life featuring Black Planet. Out with the old, in with the new shit. It was like one of those rock rap tracks, like which they also had Bring the Noise by Anthrax and Public Enemy on here. No Cigar by Millencolin. Like, dude, actually, this game got me into Millencolin as well because I went out and bought 2 Millencolin albums as a result of listening. I loved this song so much. I bought Life on a Plate and Penny Bridge Pioneers by Millencolin as a result of playing this game. Heavy Metal Winter by Consumed, I love the dude's like Irish, Scottish, I don't know, accent on this song, or English or whatever. It's just such a thick like UK accent. It's just a fun song. 5 Lessons Learned, Swinging Utters. I love the guy's voice on this one. Really cool alternative rock, kind of like punk song. And then, of course, you have the classic Guerrilla Radio. Fun fact, Guerrilla Radio isn't even like my most favorite song off that album. It's one of my least favorites, actually. I tend to skip it. I think because they just overplayed it so much when it came out, and I heard it too much on this video game. Then you got Bring the Noise by Chuck D featuring Anthrax featuring Chuck D of Public Enemy. They always compare this song to Aerosmith and Run DMC's Walk This Way, but I don't know, I never really liked this song that much. It just was weird to me. And then you have When Worlds Collide by Powerman 5000, which, nu metal was very much popular thing at this point, and Power Man 5000 had this kind of synthetic nu metal sound to them. So yeah, that's my synopsis of the songs. I tried to go as quickly as I could on that one. But yeah, so overall, loved these soundtracks, and the concept of having real songs in a video game is honestly something that I still find quite refreshing. There'll be the occasionally licensed song that will pop up in some open world shooter that I'm playing, and it just makes me feel, for whatever the case, it just makes the world feel more alive and more real to me. And I know that was pretty much all started with the Tony Hawk soundtracks, because games weren't really doing that on that level and making that much of an impact on the careers of artists as the Tony Hawk soundtracks did. So anyway, gotta know what your opinions are. I'm sure you have them. What was your favorite soundtrack? I know, I kind of dissed 3 a little bit in the intro, but there were some great songs on the third soundtrack. And then Tony Hawk 4 was the last game in the franchise that I played, and then I just kind of checked out. So, let me know if I'm missing out. I know there's Underground and American Battleground and Wasteland and X and all these other iterations of the Tony Hawk franchise. I just kind of fell out of favor with that genre of gameplay. I think when I stopped caring about skateboarding so much is kind of when I stopped playing the games. The two kind of went hand in hand. All your friends skated, and therefore you would all do the same stuff, like play the Tony Hawk games. But it introduced me to some good music. Love to hear what your thoughts on the soundtracks are. And until next time, have a good rest of your night.